Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. I'm Bear, and you are now watching Punk Stream. I will figure out a better YouTube intro. Monologue thing. I guess you're supposed to introduce people. Excuse my dog. She's quite vocal this morning, apparently. Pug stub it. So, anyways, almost lost my S Pen. In case you were wondering, I am recording on my phone because hashtag broke girl problems. I work at McDonald's and can't afford a camera. So, eventually, A, the lighting will be better, and B, so will the camera quality. So, until then, you're getting my phone. So, anyways, on to today's video. Speak words and speak English. Anyways. So, in my YouTube channel, guys, I'm just gonna talk to you about certain things that I'm interested in, different things that I like. I'm really into, like, paranormal. I love, different type of cases, like, the Gypsy Rose case. Talk about that later. Also, like, Jean Bonnet. Just certain mystery cases like that, including, like, older stuff, like, Jack the Ripper. I like to talk about travel. I like to talk about, I just said travel like I've actually traveled. I've only actually ever been to, like, 3 places. That's besides the point. Anyways, so, just different stuff. Hey, you know what? If you stumbled across my channel, that means you must be interested in something that I'm talking about. So, welcome to the channel. On to today's video. I think I've already said that, but I'm gonna say it again. So, I have been watching and researching the Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard case. It was kind of interesting to me. I like a lot of medical stuff too, and the reason that this caught my attention was I was scrolling through, I believe it was Facebook, and I saw a thing for a show called The Act on Hulu. Now, The Act kind of follows the story of Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard in a dramatized series to kind of, I guess, tell the story. Anyways, I've heard of this before. There's a lot of screwed up stuff, that happens. And it's just, to me, really interesting. So, maybe you guys will find it too. I am a horrible note taker. So I'm using my notes on my phone that I emailed myself because I'm a loser. So, in this case, it involves Gypsy Rose, her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, who's also, her legal name is Claudine, and then eventually this man named Nicholas Godijon, which, will come into the, story play later. So, let's get into it. So, this started back in June of 2015. So, the verdict was a guilty plea for murder in the first degree, and for Godijon was murder in the first degree, and Gypsy Rose was murder in the second. I was wrong. Blanchard had murder in the first degree. Second degree. I have 2 dogs. That was my other one. So, on June 14th of 2015, the neighbors that surrounded Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard had called the Sheriff's Department of Springfield to do a wellness check, and of which they found the body of Dee Dee Blanchard, who was murdered in her own home at some point. So, this did happen in Springfield, Missouri. And, the whole thing, which they're, explaining is Claudine or Dee Dee Blanchard had actually suffered from a disability. Well, I guess you wouldn't call it suffered. Anyways, this woman had something called Munchausen by proxy. If you don't know what Munchausen by proxy is, it is Munchausen syndrome by proxy, if you want to get technical. It's a mental disorder where a parent or a caretaker, yes, I'm reading this off my notes so that I can give you guys exact information. Caretaker exaggerates, fabricates, or induces illnesses in person to care and obtain sympathy from others. So this woman was taking her child and she was inducing illnesses in Gypsy in order to get sympathy and attention from other people. Now, Gypsy and Dee Dee Blanchard had gone from, one place to another. I found 3, of which I think it was 3. So, they were moving around, but that is what this woman was doing to her child. I know. But, screwed up. Don't want to get demonetized before I even have the chance to be monetized. So, camera's over there. So, many people did believe the situation. A lot of people, believe that Dee Dee was this amazing mother who was taking great care of this disabled child. This child who eventually, once the murders take place, I believe is around the age of 21, 22. And I mean, people believe this so much that they were getting help from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They were getting help from, eventually at the end of all what had happened, the house that the murder took place in was actually built by Habitat for Humanity because they were displaced by Katrina. I don't know how actually factual that is. I don't actually know if they were in Katrina or not. All the research that I have done does point to they were in Katrina. If I'm wrong, leave me a note down in the comments below. So they were also getting, they had also had help from the Ronald McDonald House. If you guys don't know what that is, I actually work for McDonald's. Ronald McDonald House is a place where parents who do not have enough money to stay in a hotel or do not have the funds and want to be with their child, this Ronald McDonald House pays for your stay in order to be with your sickly child free of cost. Is basically what that is. So, during Dee Dee's childhood, relatives would recall that she occasionally would engage in petty theft. She had also done things like writing bad checks. She would do things that just, a normal person would not do if things did not go her way. So, there is, this goes back to even before, Dee Dee had Gypsy. So, during her childhood, alright, and adult life at some point, she did work as a nurse's aide. That may be where she had, I guess, an advantage of helping using the medications that Gypsy were on to help, I guess, show the symptoms of some of these things that Dee Dee was claiming that her daughter had. It was expressed in 1997, well, not in 1997, but after Dee Dee's death, it was expressed that back in 1997, that Dee Dee may have had something to do with her mother's death, being as she may have been actually refusing to give her food. So guys, she may have actually killed her own mother. I'm sorry, but okay. Just let that sink in. So eventually, Gypsy's mother, Dee Dee, meets what would become Gypsy's father. His name is Rod. And he does try as much as he can to stay in Gypsy's life, in the know, and I'm going to let you know now that did not happen. Dee Dee was very closed off when it came to Rod. She told her neighbors that he was abusive, he was a drug addict, he couldn't come to terms with his daughter's illnesses, And in all actuality, he was actually sending them quite a large amount of child support money. Not only were they receiving that, but they were also receiving help from the state for Gypsy's supposed mental illnesses. So let me just give you a rundown of some of the things, because I don't remember them all, but some of the things that her mother said that Gypsy had. So Gypsy's mother had claimed that she had a seizure disorder. So of course, you know, she was put on medication for that. She had also claimed that Dee Dee had a muscular dystrophy disorder. If you don't know what that is, go ahead and look it up. It's actually kind of interesting, really sad. But anyways, she also said that she had some form of mental retardation. And I don't mean that as in, you know, trying to make fun of anybody, but no, she actually tried to prove that Gypsy had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old at one point. She also claimed that Gypsy had drooling issues. So, you know, all these things that her mother was saying that she had, I do believe I have in my notes everything that, you know, Gypsy's mother said that she did have in my notes somewhere. But eventually, Gypsy was put in a wheelchair because she could not walk. That, of course, is not true. She was also put on medications and put through multiple surgeries because of this. I don't understand how you can do that to your kid. Look, if I had a kid, I have 2 dogs. You know, I care for my dogs like they are my children. I'm probably going to get some backlash for that, but whatever. I do, however, have nieces and nephews, and I could not see myself inducing any type of illnesses on them to get any type of sympathy or empathy or help or anything like that. Just because, I mean, my niece got a cold and I flipped a lid. There's a whole background story to that. But anyways, so according to Rod, who, like I said, tried to stay involved in his daughter's life at this point, Gyp, as she was known to her extended family, was 3 months old, and her mother was convinced that this 3-month-old infant, had sleep apnea. Now, this led to multiple hospital stays and multiple tests being done, and Gypsy did not have sleep apnea. But her mother was adamant that she did. So here's where we start to really get into what Dee Dee had done to Gypsy. And yes, this is child abuse. This is a very extreme form of child abuse. So, like I said, they found no signs of the conditions. Now, when Gypsy was 7 or 8, Bobby, which is a relative of Dee Dee, does recall that she was riding on her grandfather's motorcycle with him, and she did fall because they had a minor accident. She skinned her knee. However, her mother, because of the wound flesh, said that it would take multiple surgeries to take care of, and this would start to eventually lead up to Gypsy being in a wheelchair. Of course, like I said, you know, the actual reason was the muscular dystrophy, but that's where I believe it was a walker. She made Gypsy use a walker, and that's just where it started with the wheelchair. Here we go. So there was no signs at all of Gypsy Rose actually going through the illnesses that her mother, you know, other than the illnesses being induced by whatever her mother was doing. So she claimed that her daughter had leukemia, which is a form of cancer. I don't know how many of y'all know that. Asthma, muscular dystrophy, along with several other chronic conditions, and had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old due to brain damage she suffered as a result of premature birth. So this girl was being, I didn't actually find any reports that she was actually being treated for cancer. I believe that her mother was just shaving her head to make it look as if she was. She probably made Gypsy think that she was going through chemotherapy, so very often Gypsy would wear hats and wigs to cover the fact that her mother shaved her head regularly, because as Dee Dee told Gypsy, it was just going to fall out from the chemo anyways. So Gypsy Rose came along when her mother was 24. I'm sorry. Yeah, 24. They named her the daughter Gypsy Rose for, certain reasons. However, her parents did split because Rod realized that he'd gotten married for the wrong reasons. They got married. Probably should have mentioned that. I suck at this. Anyways. So, she eventually took her newborn daughter, which was Gypsy at this point, to live with her family. She did stop going to school after the 2nd grade, possibly even as early as kindergarten. So what had happened was her mother actually pulled her out of school to homeschool her because of her multiple issues that Gypsy supposedly had, and apparently it was just easier to keep her at home to, of course, care for her. And in return, Gypsy did not go to school to get regular communication with other children, and as we all know, that is very important. So that could have definitely, had something to do with the fact that Gypsy didn't always, I guess, present herself as her age. If you watch some of the things that are, here on YouTube already about this case, you can kind of see what I mean by that. And Gypsy had apparently managed to learn to read from Harry Potter books. Hashtag Gryffindor house. Anyways, so as this was all happening, later claims would come out that as Claudine and Gypsy was living with her family at the time, apparently she was making food for her stepmother. Dee Dee was making food for her stepmother, of which she was apparently putting Roundup weed killer in there, and in turn inducing a sickness in her stepmother. Now, very shortly after Dee Dee had left with Gypsy to move to, I believe it was Slidell. Yeah, Slidell. Her stepmother's health had returned to normal. So, not only was she trying to induce things in her child, she may have killed her mother, but now at this point, she is also inducing things in her stepmother. Okay. So, after Hurricane Katrina in the August of 2005, which I think we all know, pretty well, Dee Dee said that all of Gypsy Rose's medical, stuff was lost in Katrina. They had went and stayed at a shelter for special needs individuals after Katrina. This is when, at this point, that somebody gets the idea that they should be moved to Springfield, Missouri, which will later become where the murder eventually took place. And that is how they got there. So, a doctor had actually, from the Ozarks, suggested that they relocate her to native Missouri. In the next month, they were airlifted there after the doctor had suggested. So, at first they lived in a rented home in the southwestern area, but during their time there, Gypsy was honored by certain foundations that advocate for rights of feeding tube recipients. Yes, Gypsy Rose had a feeding tube. This girl could feed herself and swallow just fine, but her mother had them put in a feeding tube. She was fed Pedialyte or whatever it is that they put in the G-tube which is another name for a feeding tube, a child's diet well into her 20s. As we all know, as you get older, your diet needs change. So this does attribute to the fact of Gypsy's very small stature, very small weight, because of the things that her mother was feeding to her. And of course, her medicine and everything goes through this G tube. So Gypsy Rose at the beginning had no idea. The only thing that she knew was that she could walk. So in 2008 is when Habitat for Humanity built them this house in Springfield, Missouri. And it did come complete with a wheelchair ramp. So the mother and daughter allowed them, aviated themselves occasional stays in the Ronald McDonald houses during medical appointments, which I had already explained. They received free flights to see doctors in different states. They had received free trips to Disney World, backstage passes to Miranda Lambert. Fun fact, Gypsy Rose did in fact meet Miranda Lambert and at-time husband Blake Shelton. Miranda Lambert had also wrote a personal check out of her own money of $15,000 for Gypsy Rose. This woman, her mother, was able to con a celebrity. Probably not that hard, but the point is. So at this time, Rob Blanchard was making his child support payments monthly, even though Gypsy's mother, Dee Dee, had claimed that, he was not involved in the life of their daughter, that he was an addict, that he did not come to terms. He was, in fact, sending them $1,200 in child support monthly. So Dee Dee was receiving all of this help from Habitat for Humanity for the disability of the things that were wrong with her daughter, or supposedly wrong with her daughter at the time, but also the $1,000 and then some check a month of child support from Gypsy's biological father. So she was actually receiving payment and help. Rod did call Gypsy on her 18th birthday, so check this out. On her 18th birthday, Dee Dee had mentioned to Rod to not tell Dee Dee that she was 18, as she had thought that she was 14. So this mother had her daughter believe that she was 4 years younger than what she actually was at this point. Red flag, dude. Serious red flag. I can't speak for how her, Gypsy's father, was reacting. Gypsy's father did remarry, and as I said, he tried to stay in contact, but with Dee Dee trying to keep up the, persona of the fact that he wanted nothing to do with Gypsy, she would consistently change plans so that him and her new wife were not or Rod and his new wife was not able to visit Gypsy, and so on and so forth. So Dee Dee did use also a form of physical abuse to her child. She was seen in interviews or any time that they are around other people that Dee Dee would always have a hand on Gypsy, and if Gypsy said anything at all that moved to, oh, she's not actually sick, to she has the normal mental capacity of the age that she actually is, Dee Dee would then squeeze Gypsy to let her know to stop talking. And once they would arrive home, she would beat her with open palms and coat hangers. So not only was this woman putting her child through illnesses that she did not have, she was also actually physically abusing her child, beating her and whatnot. So a pediatric neurologist who saw Gypsy in Springfield at one point did become suspicious of the muscular dystrophy diagnosis. So when he did eventually find medical records of Gypsy Rose, he saw that all the tests that she had done previously at a different location did come back negative for muscular dystrophy. This doctor was told to treat these two with golden hands, and he never filed a report with DHS, with Child Services, because he believed that nobody would believe him. So a red flag went off to a doctor at some point, and he never reported it because he was told and was made to believe that nobody at all would believe what he was saying. So when you think about it, at some point this could have been stopped earlier. Gypsy may have been able to have, a normal life, depending on how that could have all played out, but that is not what happened. So, this doctor did order MRIs, like I said, and blood tests, and found no abnormalities. And he mentioned to Dee Dee Blanchard that he had no idea why her daughter could not walk. Because in a visit, he saw Gypsy support her own weight without the help of her wheelchair or walker. Dee Dee did brush this off to the doctor. She did request the doctor's notes, because you can do that, and saw that, there were certain notes that he was taking, and she never took her daughter back to this specific doctor. So, as I said, he never followed up. Now, here's where things start to go even more south than they already are. There are three incidents, which I have the exact information here, which is why I keep looking down. So an incident in either 2009 or 2010, Gypsy showed up at a neighbor's doorstep without her wheelchair, mind you, at this point, seeking a ride to a local hospital to visit a man of whom she shared a romantic interest in. Now, this neighbor still believed that Gypsy was at the mental capacity of a, 7-year-old, and tried to talk Gypsy out of it, believing that this man was going to just take advantage of a mentally ill patient or person. And then again in 2011, which may have been another escape attempt that ended up with her mother finding her in a hotel room with another man. Now, Gypsy had claimed that she was of legal age, but her mother then presented a false documented birth certificate that showed that Gypsy was under legal age and threatened to involve the police. Gypsy recalls that afterwards, after this had happened, Dee Dee had actually taken a hammer and smashed not only Gypsy's laptop, but her cell phone, and told Gypsy that if she ever attempted something like this again, she would take the hammer to her fingers. Bruh, no. So, in 2014, Gypsy decides to confide to Aaliyah Woodmansey, the 23-year-old neighbor who, unaware that Gypsy was really close to her own age. So at this point, she's 23, so Gypsy is close to that age. And considered herself, a big sister, that at this point, Gypsy had met Nicholas Godijon and was talking to the neighbor about eloping with Godijon and also potential names for potential children. Now, Gypsy had 5 separate Facebook accounts that, I researched and, found in multiple places that she had 5 separate Facebook accounts. In these accounts, she would contact Godijon, who she originally met on a Christian dating website. And a lot of their interactions would be very flirtatious, would, include a lot of BDSM references, and, things like this. So, she eventually starting to fall in love with this person that she had met online and never in person. Because if her mother found out, I can only imagine. Matter of fact, I don't want to imagine. So the two did continue their internet, interactions, and eventually the plan to kill Dee Dee did surface. So in June of 2015, Goldie John returned to Springfield, coming down to eventually 2015, just not in June of 2015. So in 2015, which was the next year, Gypsy paid and arranged for Goldie John to be able to come to Springfield to bump into her and her mother at a movie premiere, and in turn introduce her mother to Goldie John. It is said that they did have a sexual interaction at this meeting at one point, that Gypsy was able to get away from her mother, but her mother claimed that Goldie John was creepy. You will see where that falls into place. So now in June of 2015, Goldie John does return to Springfield, coming down why Gypsy and her mother was at a medical appointment. So after this had happened, once Dee Dee had fallen asleep, at this point is when they decide that it is the time to commit the murder. Gypsy let him know when Dee Dee was asleep, and let him into the house and provided him with the murder weapon and things of that sort. At this point, Goldie John ordered Gypsy to go into the bathroom and cover her ears so that she could not hear the murder of her mother. However, Gypsy does claim that she didn't hear her mother scream, and that she did hear her mother call out for Gypsy, I think a total of 4 times. I did not find how many times the mother was stabbed, but I do believe it was somewhere between 5 and 15. Pretty big difference, I know, but I believe it was somewhere between there. So it was definitely a crime of passion. So at this point, once the murder is being committed, once it is done, the two go into Gypsy's room, have a sexual intercourse event, and they then run away. So right before they ran away, they took $4,000 in cash that Dee Dee had been hiding around the house in order to fund their escape. They went to a motel outside of Springfield where they remained for several days, and after these several days, once that there was no indication that anybody had found the body of Dee Dee Blanchard, that Gypsy took it upon herself and begged to use Goldie John's phone to put on Facebook 2 statuses, and I will let you know what the statuses are. If I can find a way to input a screenshot or picture of what the Facebook said, it will be somewhere on the screen. If not, so Gypsy logs on to her and her mother's shared Facebook page, where she knows that neighbors and whatnot are friends and will see it, and the first post that she posts is, "That bitch is dead." This, I guess, doesn't raise enough alarm for Gypsy, so she then decides to either post, I don't know if it was a different status or a comment that said, "I fucking slashed that pig and raped her sweet daughter," and then continues to talk about the screams that were heard. At this point, one of the neighbors had saw the post and called the sheriff's county to do a wellness check. So this her mother's body had been laying in this house for, quite some time, quite a couple days. Now, here's one of the more odd things that they did. Not that this entire situation is just ridiculous, but Goldie John and Gypsy decided that they would mail the murder weapon that they used back to Goldie John's residence, which when the police did find Goldie John and Gypsy eventually, they would also find the murder weapon. So this had happened on the afternoon. The Facebook posts were done on the afternoon of June 14th. And the warrantless check was done late in the day of June 15th. So there was quite a standing worry that Gypsy had been kidnapped and taken, and of course all these neighbors knew that as far as any of that went, that she needed her medication. Her wheelchair's bore in the house, so they were very worried for Gypsy's safety at the time. So based on that information, police did actually ask somebody at Facebook to actually trace an IP address for the computer or whatever was used, and it turned out to be in Wisconsin, which is where Nicholas Goldie John is from. So the next day, they contacted police agencies in Wisconsin to go to the Big Bend home of the Goldie Johns, where both Goldie John and Gypsy were taken into custody and, charged with murder and the felony armed criminal action. So after the disclosure of how Dee Dee did treat Gypsy after all these years, sympathy for her as the victim of a violent murder did rapidly shift to her daughter as a long-term victim of child abuse. So while the death penalty in the first degree does carry, or the first murder in the first degree charge does carry the death penalty in Missouri, Wisconsin. Under Missouri law, without parole, the death penalty for first degree murder, they decided that they were not going to pursue that for either Gypsy or Goldie John, calling the case extraordinary and unusual. Okay. In January of 2017, his Goldie John's trial was postponed when prosecutors requested a second psychiatric exam. So he initially waived this right of trial by jury, but did change his mind in June of that year. So the test did show that he had an intelligence quotient of 82 and is on the autism spectrum, suggesting a diminished capacity. Basically, his lawyers were claiming that Goldie John was of a certain mental capacity, and that he was just simply doing what Gypsy had asked. So, need a sip of my coffee. So good. Sorry if the swallowing was loud. I know a lot of people hate that, but I was thirsty. So anyways, in December of 2017, the judge did set Goldie John's trial for November of 2018. At the opening arguments, prosecutors alleged that Goldie John had deliberated for over a year before the crime, and his lawyers did, point out his autism and say that Gypsy did formulate the plot, and that their love-struck client was just, doing what Gypsy had asked. So Gypsy does testify on the trial's third day. She did say that while she indeed suggested to Goldie John that he killed Dee Dee and end her mother's abuse, she had also considered at this point getting pregnant by Goldie John, thinking that if she was carrying his child, that Dee Dee would have no choice but to accept him. can I just say, with past references of things that Dee Dee did do to Gypsy because of certain things, that was not going to work. So after 4 days, the case was sent to a jury, and jurors had the option of finding Goldie John guilty or not guilty, but was eventually found guilty of murder, as him and Dee Dee did plead guilty. So in February of 2019, just this year, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder conviction, an only possible option since the prosecutors had declined to seek the death penalty. Gypsy, however, took a plea bargain and did take 10 years in prison. So she is currently serving that sentence. So, with all the ridiculous looking down at this phone to give you guys all this information, I'm going to basically keep talking about this and tell you how I, see it. So, from the day that Gypsy was born, she was erupted in a cycle of child abuse. Now, this goes on for years. I mean, years, guys. And, nobody, no doctor reports it. And if they did, obviously nothing was done about it. So, you take all this information and you see this. And what I want to know from you guys is, do you think that this should have been considered self-defense because Gypsy was being abused for so long? Or do you believe that she deserved a longer sentence than 10 years? My personal opinion is this girl was tortured her entire life. And to feel that the only way to get out of it is murder? I mean, when you basically think about it, that was the only way. I can't believe I just said that. Other people might have different opinions. I'm totally open and happy to hear your guys' opinions. I want to see it in the comment section down below. Let me know. But this is a very interesting case. Here on YouTube, they do actually have the entire trial here, for you to watch. It is quite interesting. You should definitely, check that out. Give it a look. Need some coffee. So good. I don't think I survived without it. Okay, so like I said, guys, that is the information that I did find. Like I said, I love to research this type of stuff, but I definitely do need notes to help me. If there is something interesting, a case, anything paranormal that you guys want to hear about, any story times that I may have, please put it in the comments down below. I am also going to link down in the comments and or the description box, one of the two. I have an email account set up for you guys to email me ideas and, things. I'd love to, do some story times from you guys, like if you guys have any experiences. Just, I really want to get involved with you guys. I really want to take the time. Like, I'm hoping to upload at least twice a week at this point. So hopefully that can definitely be accomplished. I promise I will get better at this as time goes on. If you did like this video, or you just, watched the cringe-worthy fact that I am so not used to YouTube yet, please smash that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so that you know when I post. Let's try to get to 100 subscribers, guys. 100 subscribers. That is my goal. You know, that is what I'm set at right now. It's just 100. So if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Definitely subscribe, guys. Definitely turn on that notification bell so that you guys know when I do upload. And like I said, please, please, please leave some, you know, comments and everything in that comment section below. I would love to read them. And I will see you guys next video. Really got to figure out a better outro. Bye, guys.